Ravens 2025 free agency preview. Now we can get to the good stuff, you football nerds, the off-season content as well. So we definitely talked about the Senior Bowl here today. We talked about watched a little bit of the Senior Bowl practice today. I just watched them. So now we're getting into some NFL offseason stuff as well. So we're definitely going to go ahead and check that out as well. Who are the first part? What we're going to do is this is just the Ravens who are free agents on the team. So who has a contract, who doesn't have a contract, etc. Last two off seasons have been very crucial in the sense of a lot was going on. Last season, you had a lot of free agents. You had like 20 some odd unrestricted free agents. I forget the number off the top of my head. It was like 24, 25 unrestricted free agents. The year before that, obviously, you had the fearless leader, Lamar Jackson, as the free agent. This year, a little less drama. You're finding pieces. You're keeping pieces. Most of your core of your team is under contract. So that's good. So when you're going into our free agency and free agency in general, you're going into things that are not just not shifting off the planet here, right? Okay, so just some things for shoring up some things here. Okay, so let's take a look. Exclusive rights free agent, Owen Wright. So what does that mean? So almost self-explanatory, right? Exclusive rights. Owen Wright is going to be a Baltimore Ravens if the Ravens want to sign him. All that means is he doesn't have a contract with another team, but the Ravens retain his rights. If the Ravens want to retain his rights, they can. They don't, then he can sign with another team. Otherwise, he has to sign with the Ravens. He can't go on another team. So Owen Wright looked good in preseason last year. I don't know if there's a spot for him on the team, but definitely they're certainly going to bring him in camp. Certainly if there's an injury to the very good running back room they have. Darius. Interesting to see if Darius Washington, who was a guy who's been a backup guy, a guy who John Harbaugh really liked. Obviously, he's a guy. It'll be interesting to see if they're talking extension with Darius. I don't know. I think they really want to bring in a safety in the draft. But I think it'd be fascinating to see if they can go ahead and pull off a Darius Washington extension. Good as he was last year, he's got some issues. First of all, Darius never misses a tackle, ever. Darius is going to go ahead and make tackles regardless of where the situation is. He's going to tackle. He's going to bring somebody down. The other thing with Darius is a little bit small. Had some injuries before. Is this a guy you want to commit to long term, even though he won the starting job? And it was very good. I thought that was the biggest addition last season. So restricted free agent, though. So what that is Ravens have basically right of first refusal. Another team can sign him. They have to run it by the Ravens. Agent, everybody has to run it by the Ravens. You don't see a lot of restricted free agents sign with other teams. So I think Darius is going to be a Raven in 2025 rather. But it'd be interesting to see because he played well if anybody else tries to sneak in there as well. Now, unrestricted free agents. So none of these guys have a contract in for the next season, right? These are guys that are totally free once they're able to sign in the period of once the new league year starts, I think in early March. So these guys will be unrestricted free agents. They can sign with any team. Chris Board. Chris Board, I thought, was a bigger addition for better or worse than what they expected. Here's a guy they expected maybe he'd play a little bit, special teams, et cetera, et cetera. He played a lot more than that. Look, bench Trenton Simpson as well. Malik Harrison, Chris Board were needed. They stepped up as well. I don't think there's going to be any pressing need to sign a Chris Board. I think what they're going to do is just going to let it play out. He'll be their second wave of free agencies, like a lot of these guys here on the list. Josh Jones didn't play as much as I thought he would. I think like it really wasn't an issue in camp. I mean, he was able to hold his roster spot, played sparingly. I'm not even sure how the Ravens feel about him if they would consider bringing him back. If they would consider it, I would think I kind of put him in the same category with Chris Board. See how the draft plays out. See if they need him. It's not going to be inexpensive. Shouldn't be a lot of teams after him. I'm more thinking with him, he'd sign with a different team, but I'm not sure quite yet. But it'd be interesting in the second wave. Travion Mullen, this guy's continuing to fight injury issues. I mean, we don't know really what you have with him on the field at all. So seems decent enough corner, NFL corner on the field when he's actually playing on the field, but a lot of injury issues. Seems like a lot of these secondary guys have had it as well. Steven Sims, they brought him in mid-season. The punt returner. This tells you his chances of coming back. John Harbaugh in the end of the year press along with EDC was saying, "Hey, we need some help at punt return." That tells you what they think. Tried a couple guys here. Devontae Hardy, same. Brought him in from Buffalo, gave him a spot. Really was injured a lot of the year, at the beginning of the year, injured through camp. Then he played, didn't really make an impact as well. These are two guys I'd be surprised if they come back. If they came back, you never know. Christian Welch, I think this is a special teams player. I think the question was with the Ravens all year, I think this was probably the worst we ever saw their special teams. Special teams not good at all this year for the Ravens, and that's very, very unusual. Usually they're at the top 10 near special teams for many years. John Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator, understands the whole defense, and I thought they were awful. So interesting to see. But Christian Welch, kind of a midseason signing as well. Deontay Johnson. I don't know why you guys think that they're for sure going to get a comp pick out of this. I mean, Deontay Johnson has lost so much money. He got released. He got moved by 3 different teams, guys. Like the Steelers got rid of him in the last season. I'm not even counting the Steelers. They got rid of him in the last season, traded him. He goes to Carolina. Not exactly a really good team. They trade him away to the Ravens for virtually nothing. The Ravens they release him due to bad conduct. The Texans go sign him, need receivers. They release him due to bad conduct. So the Ravens are trying to get some compensation. Guys, I don't know who's going to give him a lot of compensation. I don't know who that is. The one place I actually could see is actually Pittsburgh giving him some kind of contract again. But I think they've wasted more time on this than I think they needed to here. So as well. Tre'Davious White, interesting. I thought he should have played more. I thought, like, considering the struggles of Brandon Stevens, they kind of started to play him a little bit more, and then they kind of used more Brandon Stevens down the stretch after he came in. So I don't think Tre'Davious comes back. I think it'll be depending on the. They're going to have Marlon. They're going to have Marlon Humphrey back for sure. They're going to have Nate Wiggins. You're going to have Arthur Millette under contract as well. So Tre'Davious, can he be a third, fourth? Interesting to see how that goes. I think Nelson Aguilar has probably played his last game as a Raven. I don't know if Nelson is going to come in next year. I think his role would be he was able to hold on, I think, more than they thought. I think that says more about Devontae Walker. I don't think he's going to survive another EDC draft. We'll know early. The last 2 years, he signed pretty early, signed team-friendly deals. So he may want to do that again if he wants to do that, if they want to have a spot for him, etc. So it'll be interesting to see if that go ahead and plays out. Brent Urban, John Harbaugh guy, booking for next season. Brent Urban will definitely be on the Ravens next season if unless he retires. Team friendly, they may release him at the camp. He's going to be their 5th defensive lineman. And I don't see any way we don't have Brent Urban unless he retires, from the game. He is 34. He's going to be 34 next season as well. Malik Harrison, has he earned the starting job going back into next season? He basically won it back from – here's a guy who was benched a long time ago as a starter, so much so where they brought in Roquan Smith. They had Trent Simpson. Patrick Queen is gone. And so interesting to see how they feel about Malik Harrison, see if he stays here as well. I think there's a chance he might stay. He's also very valuable on special teams. Josh Johnson, gotta upgrade from this guy. Josh Johnson, I'm fine with keeping him in the Ravens as a coach or something. They really got lucky. There was no entry to Lamar, and they didn't have to play Josh Johnson for significant minutes. I would like to see them draft a quarterback here this offseason. You don't want to do it in the first, second round, obviously, but draft a quarterback later, draft a quarterback in the late rounds. You gotta do better than Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson, I think they were lucky that there was really no Lamar injury and there was no need, but I don't think you want to go into that next year. And Tylan Wallace, I don't see it either. I don't think that Tylan Wallace is going to be back with the Ravens. He's had some flashes as well. I definitely think so. I definitely think Tylan Wallace has looked good at times. I think the problem is it's not enough of those times. I was for sure they were going to give him a run for his money at punt returner. Kind of struggled, had some drops and all that, et cetera. In the punt return game, at receiving game, looked good at times, made some good catches. Not consistent enough, I'm concerned, that for them to bring it back. Also, to Devontae Walker on the roster, maybe looking for a bigger role for him. I think that's kind of the case with both him and Aguilar. Interesting to see how that goes. These guys are in the top 5 of the free agent class. Ben Cleveland, man. I don't know why. This is the one thing, is as much as the offense got praised and the offense did well, I have no clue why Ben Cleveland was sitting the bench the whole year. That was insane. Look, you could call Falele whatever you want. I think Falele struggled all year long. He got better. I think, frankly, what they did with Falele was they just gave him more help. They gave him Patrick Pat on that side, ran more on the other side. They disguised it more. He did get incrementally better. Rosengard certainly got better. I think that helped as well. So, but Ben Cleveland, there's a 0% chance he wants anything to do with him. Harbaugh definitely doesn't want him back, in my opinion. For whatever reason, he doesn't like Ben Cleveland as a right guard. So definitely signing on another team. This would be the biggest shock of all. Like, if Ben Cleveland was to come back, the biggest shock. Project Pat Ricard. I think Project Pat is an interesting one here. I think he's asked if he said he wants to retire a Raven. I think that's very possible that he retires a Raven. I will say this. The slam dunk nature of him, no other team having interest in him, I don't know about that. I think there's going to be a bit of a running back renaissance looking at what Barkley did, Saquon Barkley did, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Ashton Genty coming out in the draft, almost winning. So I do think teams are going to focus a little more on the run and may need a fullback. So teams like San Fran, they have a former Raven, funny enough, everybody forget, Kyle Juszczyk. They have the Chargers seem to be signing up a lot of Ravens players. And the West teams more. I think it's some chance that somebody else gets it, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna have Pat Ricard. I would say 75-25 he comes back. I don't think it's that, but I don't think it's 90%. I think like it's a little bit overstated to say that. Pat McCary. This is the one of the list of the finalists here. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure because of what McCary's market is. I don't know if another team. I'm thinking that another team is going to be interested in him. There's a very big dearth of good, really solid starting caliber NFL guards, NFL tackles. Guy with his versatility, capable of starting. He started all year at left guard. I thought that was the better side of the line that he started on. Kind of got beat out Andrew Voorhees for it. So I'm kind of thinking it is, but it'd be interesting to see. I think, though, if they can get a similar deal than what they had, I think there's interest there. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I'm not sure what his market is, though. I don't know how the rest of the league feels about him. I think the Ravens would love to have him back, though. Absolutely. Brandon Stevens. Um, I think Ben Cleveland would be a bigger surprise at the back than Brandon Stevens. But EDC was already pretty much talking about him in past tense. Like he's definitely not going to be here. I think Stevens is going to be a starter for somebody. I think he's a decent corner. Go ahead and hit the thumbs down button. I think he's deep, but he's not. He doesn't locate the ball well. That's it. Every team down the stretch was firing at Brandon Stevens for sure. Some of that was the year that Marlon Humphrey was having, but I definitely think that Brandon Stevens is going to be an ex-Raven for sure. Is going to sign with our team. I don't know if he gets a big contract somewhere else, but I don't think the Ravens have any interest in having him as a starter going forward in 2025. And number one, Ronnie Stanley. As far as I'm concerned, this is the guy in my mind that's replaced the great Jonathan Ogden, right? This was the guy at Notre Dame. The Ravens had a subpar season, one of their rare ones. The last time they picked really high, this is who they took, Ronnie Stanley. It's been a roller coaster ride with Ronnie. I think like I thought he was terrific last year. I thought his first several years it looked great. The instant he got the big contract, it was an injury. Wasn't the same last 2 years. So many fans were frustrated because he said he was going to play and he wasn't going to play. Then he was injured. Well, close to coming back. Then it was frustrating. The sad part is we got the Ronnie Stanley this year that we've been waiting for the last couple of years. I thought he was terrific. I thought without that, the Ravens would not have done as well as they did. Stanley, I thought, was fantastic. I don't see him coming back. I think some fans I know that think are surprised by that or think that I don't see it only because there's going to be way too much interest in the league. Look, not a lot of good offensive tackles in the NFL. Not a lot of good guard in the NFL. This guy's been to a Pro Bowl, very good last year. He's going to get a $20 million deal. The Ravens kind of had him take a pay cut because of all the injuries. Shown he can be healthy for a year. I'd be shocked if he came back. I think the Ravens are not going to bid this kind of money for a guy. I think they're going to go into the draft, possibly Roger Rosengarten, moving from left side to right side, save some money there. But I think Stanley, if he gets $20 million, is well deserved. It's just a shame that we couldn't get more healthy Ronnie Stanley like we saw this season because this guy healthy is terrific. I don't think there's any question about it. There you go. All right. So that's the free agent list. All those guys will be available to NFL teams after the league year starts. I'm going to put him on there, although this is all but sure hasn't happened. Hasn't happened yet, but we know Marcus Williams for sure is going to be moving on. He's still on the roster. He's going to be released at some point. The Ravens, at typical Raven fans, I expect them to wait all the way up until the time to go ahead and wait. Well, we're going to get trade, blah, 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 blah. So Marcus will be gone, I'm sure. His spot is gone. I think they've already worked his deal to take the less of a hit to make him to take the cap hit off a little bit better for them. So Marcus wasn't on there, but Marcus for sure, no discussion there. Is going to be an ex-Raven here pretty soon. Great news. Chuck Pagano is coming back as a senior defensive assistant as well. Good to see Chuck back with his health issues. So he retired. He had some health issues. I think that was part of why he retired. This is a guy who was head coach, one of the great defensive coordinator lineage that the Ravens have had. So Dean Pease is on the roster. Chuck Pagano is back as well. So I think it's great to see Chuck. I think this is only good that when you have a guy with this type of experience ready to go, helping your young core get better. So absolutely great news as well. All right. So let's get down. Now we got that out the way. Chuck Pagano.